So here's the eight-figure business update for the week of July 27th through August 2nd. This is the first one I'm ever doing, but basically just going to be tracking my thoughts on hopefully a weekly basis, and hopefully this is the first of many videos. And all we're going to be doing here is tracking as I build Boosted Brains, the ACT prep company, hopefully to eight figures and beyond. So really, all I'm doing is I don't know if I'm going to post this anywhere live or keep it internal for employees, or just keep track of it for myself, maybe even just for myself or family and friends. But very informal videos. I'm going to try and lower the barrier to entry for myself to creating these videos as much as I possibly can. So I promised myself no more than one take, Loom videos, make it as easy as possible, and just going to be recapping basically the key things that I did in the past week, key things about the business, so on and so forth. So for the week ending August 2nd, I think that was yesterday, Saturday, today's the 3rd, just overall business recap. We finished out the month of July with looks like 92,420 in cash collected, as the Stripe screenshot there shows. So overall, wrapped up a really good month of July. Just a lot of students coming in with a lot more urgency now. There was a June 14th ACT, there was a July 12th ACT. The results from that July 12th ACT came back. A lot of our students did very, very well. A lot of other students were unhappy with their scores, and a lot of rising seniors are now building urgency in the process of college applications, and they're realizing that they need some serious help on the ACT, and they're coming to us because we have a good process for helping students even under kind of weird, tight timeline conditions, and we can kind of be flexible with our program and be targeted with the practice that we give them and everything. So you can see the kind of fluctuations throughout the month, a lot more towards this back half with a huge day on the last actual day of the month, where a handful of new students all decided to join as well. So a lot of momentum building into the month of August. So this is basically everything that we did for the last week. There was actually some operations. Normally I would just break this up into fulfillment, marketing, and sales. But in terms of operations, I did a decent bit of tax planning. So I've got my calendar pulled up on the left screen here. So I'll kind of go over some of this as well on the left-hand side of the screen. But had a handful of tax planning meetings, trying to make sure that next year, first of all, the books are in a much better spot than they have been up until this point. So we can get clean financial statements, and we can know exactly kind of what the status of the business is on a day-to-day basis. And then also part of that is just actually planning for tax purposes, making sure we capitalize on specific deductions and just paying as little and taxes as possible, and reinvesting into the business as much as possible, keeping as much money around for actual useful purposes of helping students and helping ourselves. So obviously, goal is to minimize taxes. In terms of, I guess just to recap, had a couple meetings with some different agencies out there, a local CPA as well, about just the best ways to move forward. Picked an option for a bit of a larger agency, and hopefully they don't end up being a terrible agency that just promises everything and way under delivers. But basically they're supposed to take all of the tax burden and planning off of my side of things, and also set up with a bookkeeper so that everything is kind of all in-house in one place over there. So hopefully that eases the burden of just headache stuff that I don't really care about doing, which is, I'd much rather focus on these other things: fulfillment, marketing, and sales. So in terms of what happened on the fulfillment side, fortunately, our students were really, I guess we fulfilled well, and a lot of our students from the July 12th ACT are very satisfied with their results. So what we did is set up a number of testimonial meetings. On the fulfillment side, this was the first kind of real test, real full cycle of students who went through with our assistant ACT coaches in there as well. So this is where our ACT coaches took a lot of the burden off of my plate, and this was kind of the first real test to make sure that we're still able to get students awesome results with me being a little bit in the background. And it went extremely well, as we were indicating, from all the practice results that the students were getting. The actual ACT went off very well for the vast majority of our students, and so we were fortunate enough to have some good testimonial meetings. And these were the first testimonial meetings that we actually had where we collected a testimonial with myself, but then also some of the other ACT coaches as well. So hopefully we can figure out a good way to repurpose some of those case studies and testimonial meetings into, continual marketing content down the line, with my face a little bit less involved in the actual fulfillment picture side of things. So getting, future prospects to trust that, it's not just that their student needs to work with me, but that we have a repeatable process that doesn't have to necessarily be completely overseen by yours truly. It can be overseen by someone that I've trained up very well, and obviously we try and hire very, very high quality talent around here who can manage the process better than I can. And this is kind of the first proof that we actually have that, and we try to document it with testimonial meetings, and I think we did a decent job, and hopefully we can figure out a good way to repurpose a lot of that stuff into ads and video sales letters and things like that, which I haven't necessarily done a great job of in the past, of continually making the most out of these testimonial meetings. But that's something we'll continue to work on. Next up, we had a handful of student check-ins after the July ACT for students who are continuing on in the program through September 6th. So definitely, there were obviously some pain points, some students who didn't do quite as well on certain sections of the test, but for the most part, we were able to hone in on just a couple of sections that we can really focus on for September 6th, especially now that the ACT is dropping off the science section from the composite score. Obviously, some schools will still be looking at that, but a lot of schools will just be looking at English, math, and reading. And most of our students at least have one or two good scores out of those three categories. So we're able to focus in on just one or two sections of the ACT going into the September test for these students who are continuing on after the July ACT and heading into the September 6th one. So we had a handful of check-in meetings there where we just had to kind of lay out the plan and talk about what we're going to change going forward. Had one kind of one-off kickoff meeting, roadmap meeting with the younger brother of a previous student, which was pretty cool. So I think that was maybe the first or second time where we've had, not just a great outcome for one student in the family, but passing along to a younger student as well. It was kind of a weird situation because it was last year. The older brother joined the program as a rising senior, so he was kind of joining during this time frame where there was a lot of urgency and everything. Now, with the younger brother, they're starting him as a rising junior, so a year has passed, and he's starting a year earlier to make sure that they don't go through the same kind of urgency process that a lot of other students go through. So wanted to note that in there because it's always great to see how our results can impact and also kind of cascade down the line to bring in future students through either referrals or through just passing down to younger siblings. So hopefully we'll have a lot more younger brothers and younger sisters joining over the next few years. A lot of time was spent this week on college advising meetings. So with some of the previous students that I've had who have done really well in the ACT that I've loved working with, continuing to kind of work with them, edit their essays, give little brainstorming advice, and for some students kind of lay out even like a full step-by-step plan for where they need to go over the next few weeks and months as they plan out they're all rising seniors, so planning out their college application process. And this is all with the express purpose of continuing to just generate goodwill with these students, and also to kind of test out what the college advising offer may look like in the future. Right now, we're only doing ACT prep as of August 3rd, 2025, but I do definitely want to expand into a full college advising, college planning package. And so this is kind of testing the waters there. We definitely want to make sure that we have the product or the service down 100% correctly before we just go charge people money for it. I've never felt good about charging people a bunch of money for something that I'm not 100% confident in myself. So this is kind of a test run for what we're going to do in the future. And like I feel very confident in helping these students already, but just want to have more confidence in myself, have the case studies, have the proof, kind of work out a lot of the kinks along the way for the best way to lay out to-do lists, lay out kind of planning timelines over the course of multiple months and things like that. Like I think my ability to help out in terms of the essays and the activity sheets and the extracurriculars and all that stuff is pretty good. But I think obviously there's always ways to improve and also just ways to get that information across in the best way possible, in the most concise, efficient way possible, so that students aren't necessarily lost, they're not wasting their time, and it's just a good kind of seamless process. So we had a number of these meetings, created a lot of resources, created a lot of little worksheets and guides and brainstorming exercises for students to go through, and so spent a lot of time doing that stuff that hopefully will pay dividends in the future. Other thing, head of student success. So I've been poking around doing a lot of interviews over the last maybe month or so, looking for the head of student success to take over kind of pretty much everything in terms of the fulfillment side of things, at least in terms of the ACT prep, working with students. And we actually just officially signed the contract as of Friday, August 1st, with our new head of student success. Seems like it's going to be a great partnership going forward, and don't want to give out too many details in case it doesn't end up being the perfect fit, but pretty, I guess if I'm keeping this internal anyways, it doesn't really matter. Pretty optimistic about the partnership that we have here, and just want to, I guess in terms of what we did this week, I had to get a lot of stuff ramped up, and that's kind of where some of this tax planning stuff got in place. Had to realize like there's a lot of financial statements and stuff that I should probably get cleaned up to make it a lot more professional and organized of numbers and everything like that. Got contract work hammered out this week, came up with the actual agreement of compensation and everything, which was pretty complicated. Not complicated, just took a lot of thought and just a lot of deliberation on my part about what the best way to structure compensation for a head of student success was. But we got a good plan in there, and hopefully this is a really good long-term partnership that's going to be here going forward. And then after the July 12th test, obviously, still dealing with fallout, good and bad, in terms of like one-off communication. Parents who were super thrilled, just wanting to relay their happiness, their satisfaction. Other parents who weren't necessarily as thrilled, and wondering about what the next steps are looking like. So there was a lot of one-off communication there that took up a lot of time, and I think that's just how it's going to go when I was the one who was dealing with fulfillment all on my own for the last few months, and hopefully having the coaches in place and having the head of student success in place going forward will help alleviate a lot of this like one-off communication and time that was spent building up. I guess just time that was spent kind of responding to like one-off communication, Slack messages and emails and things like that. So there was a lot of stuff in there. Now over on, I guess there was a lot of stuff in fulfillment. That's why I'm doing this, just to recognize for myself how much time I spend on different aspects of the business. So then in terms of marketing, so spent a lot of time deliberating and thinking about the best ways to continue scaling. Right now, the update is that I haven't filmed new ad creatives. I haven't posted live new ad creatives since I think maybe March of 2025. So what is that, 5 months now? If the math is correct there. And we're starting to see some effects of ad fatigue, and we're putting a good chunk of cash into the ads, but we're still not actually seeing like crazy decreases in return on ad spend, which we're seeing definitely some lower click-through rates, some lower overall return on ad spend, but we're still doing pretty well. But I'm anticipating that as we continue scaling, these ads are for sure going to run out. Currently, we are working with a marketing agency who is doing just an an abysmal job. I think I engaged them in May, the middle of May of this year, so almost 3 months ago, and we haven't even gotten any new ads live for the cold advertising for the the top of funnel traffic. We did get a couple of retargeting ads live for nurture sequences for retargeting people who had booked calls, but those were just very, very simple, very straightforward ads live in the ads manager. So obviously thinking about going forward, current marketing agency is out. And we're going to see basically what we can do to get them out as quickly as possible, and get some turnover here. They are actually working on a couple final round edits of another batch of ads, but obviously this is not something that we're going to do continuing to scale. And I want to have something in place for ways to start recycling new ad creatives and get someone in here who actually can help out and help us continue scaling. Because obviously the current marketing agency is just not what we're going to be doing going forward. So looking at new options, new marketing agencies, I just don't necessarily know where to find a good, trustworthy marketing agency going forward. I think we're at kind of almost in no man's land right now, doing about 90,000 cash collected a month, where the biggest, probably the most trustworthy, if that's even a thing, marketing agencies, the ones I would be most comfortable going with probably wouldn't be taking me on as a client because they're too big. Or if they would take me on as a client, then they would be handing me off to a very, very low level rep, which is pretty much what the current marketing agency did. And they wouldn't be incentivized. I don't have enough ad spend to incentivize them properly. So I don't really know the best way to go about finding or vetting a new marketing agency that would be a good fit for where I am right now. There are tons of e-com agencies that don't necessarily do in my opinion, they probably would take on an info service-based business, but they don't specialize in it, so I don't want to go with someone like that. Growth partner, I haven't found a good way to find and vet a good growth partner, so I'm not sure there. And basically what I came to the conclusion of is that I think the best way to go forward is to just hire a video editing agency and just deal with a lot of the creative testing stuff myself, even though that will be a headache, or pair them up with a media buyer who can specialize in some of the tactics of testing ad creatives and testing different angles and actually pushing the buttons in the ad campaign. I think that's where we could alleviate a lot of stress in terms of continuing to recycle and test new ad creatives, is having this media buyer paired in here. So basically getting kind of a lower end video editing agency that's not going to charge a lot of money, something less than $1,000 a month, to get a bunch of editing for ads, and then pair them up with a media buyer who can actually go in and do hopefully a lot of the structuring of tests and at least ideating of what the best ways to test different angles and things are. Because I definitely want to test a lot of new ad angles and obviously see which ones perform best. And I just don't necessarily know the best way to do that on my own, and I can't allocate 100% of my time to that, at least as of right now. I think once fulfillment, head of student success, and everything kind of get in place and get ramped up, this is where we will be able to, at least I'll be able to focus a lot more of my time on the marketing and also the sales side of things. But this is where, in order to get things in place to where we can test a lot of new ad creatives, I would want to be able to be a lot more knowledgeable about the best way to do that. Educational email sequence. So last week, actually, not this past week, but the week before, I kind of dug into educational email sequences as a potential lead magnet. Listened to a Dickie Bush podcast where he basically talked about how he got started in ghostwriting, and just kind of by the nature of that, he's essentially sold me on an educational email sequence. So I reached out to a bunch of ghostwriters and kind of had a couple of introductory calls with some of them on educational email sequences, but ended up kind of deciding that that might just be a woman in the red dress. We've got, I guess, let me put this in here, scaling ads, because everything is currently going through ads, and they're doing very well. And I think it's just like, do more. Like, why are we not just doing more ads? Like, why would we complicate things by doing an educational email sequence when we could just do a lot more ad creatives and continue scaling with ads by just pushing buttons, rather than throwing in a new like lead magnet for educational email sequence that then has a follow-up sequence for trying to get people in. Even though I think this would be a great idea, top of funnel, get people in with an educational email sequence, build the email list, build the retargeting list, because our retargeting ads can crush it. I just don't know if it's worth the time and effort right now. I think this is definitely something that would be really cool to do. But again, that's where it maybe makes me think that it's just more of a distraction, more of a woman in the red dress. So putting this on the back burner right now, and hopefully all the people that I reached out to interview them about creating an educational email sequence will still be there, or maybe I'll just even do this myself sometime down the line. But putting this on the back burner for right now, but still had a couple meetings, couple emails going back and forth regarding this thing this week. And then in terms of sales, so obviously lots of urgency starting to build heading up into senior year, and rising juniors are also starting to realize the importance of ACT prep, wanting to get things in motion before their junior year starts. Their parents are probably looking at their calendars saying like, oh my gosh, junior year is the big year for standardized testing, for AP exams, for getting everything ready for the college applications. So the ones who are kind of earlier on in the process are just like, I guess the early starters are reaching out now, which is great. And if you can get the ACT knocked out early on, that it only benefits you. So I definitely recommend juniors to be doing this so that they don't end up in the position where urgency is starting to build up heading into senior year. So basically right now we're getting kind of the overlap of both rising seniors are coming in and rising juniors are coming in. So we're kind of overlapping between both. Our closer is starting to get into a really great groove. She's doing an awesome job so far. I love having her on the team. She is not, your typical closer who's going to be like very pushy and very, aggressive and represent the brand in a bad way. And she is really getting into a good groove here. This is her third month, I think. This will be the start. August, I think, is the start of her third full month. I think she started up early May. So really building up into a good groove. And I think we've got some good bonus targets laid out for her to where she's going to be very heavily incentivized to continue doing a great job and continue staying with us for the long term. And that's part of building the team here, is making sure that people want to be around for the long term. I guess one thing I should put on here, or just at least note, is that maybe I'll type this out. So we had our first like bi-weekly check-in. So like started our bi-weekly check-ins with call reviews. So obviously the fact that I wasn't doing this before, 3 months into our our employment, is just probably a terrible thing. I haven't had regularly scheduled calls with our closer ever before. Now at least we have bi-weekly scheduled calls. Beforehand, it was not like I was completely leaving her out on an island fully, but we were doing a lot of ad hoc things, and I think just having standing calls with the closer is kind of a no-brainer. Well, I think someone asked me how often I meet with my sales team, and like I was like, oh, I guess I should probably be doing that. And that's where these bi-weekly check-ins are coming in. Probably should do this even more frequently, but again, just don't necessarily even have the time on the calendar to do all of this stuff. But she's doing an awesome job, and she's not the bottleneck right now. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue to make small tweaks and adjustments here and there. And if and when things become an issue, then we'll hopefully have an easy way to solve those issues. In terms of sales, the other thing is we are now going all in on not having an opt-in page in front of the video sales letter. So right now we're just driving traffic directly to the VSL and having the application right on the page underneath the video sales letter. And so I ran a couple tests and found that we were just losing too many people to the opt-in to make it worth having the setter call leads as soon as they opted in. So for a while, we were running, do I want to pull up a whiteboard? Or I wish Google Docs, does Google Docs have a little drawing capability? Or can I do this on Loom, actually? Yeah, I guess I could do it like this. So for a little while we were running ads. I guess that's terrible handwriting. So we'll just do like ads, video ads. Yeah, that's a little video play button. Oh, it goes away. Oh no, can we make this permanent? Oh well. Oh well. Like I said, we're doing this one take. We're not messing around with any edits or anything. Okay, we'll just see. Yeah, I guess we'll just do this. So we've got ads here. We used to have a landing page with an opt-in. So it was like name, email, phone number, name, and then really like phone number. And then our setter would call people as soon as they opted in. And then as soon as they opted in, they would also go see the video sales letter. So that was another little video here. So maybe we can get a little play button there. So it was add to opt-in letter to then VSL, or add to opt-in to VSL. And then our setter was calling leads as soon as they opted in. Now we found that we couldn't really get the opt-in rate above about 20%. I think we got it as high as like maybe 22% of landing page views to actually opt in. So really like from the ad to the opt-in, we were losing give or take 80% of our traffic right there. So when we switched to the running, I ran a little split test. It was a very rough split test because it's very tough to split test two different entire funnels and go high level. But when I ran a rough split test, basically we've just found that a lot more people were self-booking when they just could view the video sales letter right away. And that's because, I mean, we have a great offer. We have a great video sales letter because we have a great offer and we'd get great results. So we might as well just showcase that to people right up front and let them make the decision of whether they want to book a call with us, rather than kind of going through the like tactic of, we need to put this video behind an opt-in wall to then, get you to give us your phone number so then our setter can call you and set you up on a call. What we also found was just a lot of the calls that were set through phone were people who were just less engaged, right? Like they didn't book themselves in, and they didn't book themselves in for a reason. Again, maybe we just didn't have a great script. Maybe we didn't have I didn't do probably the best job managing the setter and putting in specific processes in place to like follow up and continue nurturing and all that stuff and have like a great setting script. But basically, at the end of the day, if we can just have a great video sales letter, have a great offer, and get people very, very enthusiastic about working with us, they're gonna book a call with us, and they're gonna want to buy when we make them the offer on the sales call. So decided to go all in without the opt-in page, and so we had to have a tough conversation with the setter about we're basically eliminating the setting position. Fortunately, it came at a great time where our setter was also kind of starting to go out on his own and want to kind of get into the business world himself. We had a great relationship over the last, he was on board for, I think, almost a full year, if not over a full year, which is that's like ages in terms of setter years. in terms of the setter world, that's like having someone on for 50 years, I feel like. So it was a great relationship overall. We parted ways on very good terms, and hopefully he actually ends up going on and building a great business of his own, which he's already kind of started to do. So overall, that elimination of the setter position was not nearly as rough as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a very, very tough conversation, and then it ended up being a pretty reasonable one. And got to make the best decision for the business. So that was what we did there, and I think that's pretty much the recap for the week of July 27th to August 2nd. If this ever goes live anywhere other than just my OneDrive, then hope you enjoyed the video. But if it's for employees, hope you guys are enjoying that, sticking around, and let me know if I'm doing anything terribly wrong. Blow me up on Slack or on phone number or wherever you reach me. And yeah, if this is just for me, then hopefully future me enjoys looking back on this. Peace out.